This video is all about solving trigonometric equations where you don't have just an x on the inside. So you might have sine of ax plus b. You've got this ax plus b on the inside of your trigonometric functions that's part of the equation you're trying to solve. You'll notice there's a big red exclamation mark there because there is a mistake that all students make. And I want to really emphasize that so that you guys don't make that mistake. So let's look at an example. We want to solve the equation cos 3x equals 0.4, and we want to give our answers between 0 and 180 degrees. So cos 3x equals 0.4. Now the first step, to take cos inverse of both sides. So cos inverse of 0.4, let's do that on our calculator, and we get 66.42. 3x is equal to 66.42. Big exclamation mark here. Do not divide by 3 yet. I know it is very tempting to see 3x equals 66 and think, okay, right, let's just divide by 3. That's easy. I know how to do that. But do not do that. In your notes for this video, I want to see a big exclamation mark, and I want you to have written down, do not divide by 3 yet. I don't want you guys to make this mistake. We are not going to divide by 3 at this stage. The reason why it's really important not to divide by 3 is because of we have just worked out that cos inverse of 0.4 is 66.42. But the 66.42 is not the only answer to this. There are infinitely many answers between of when cos is equal to 0.4. We need to find the other answers to cos inverse of 0.4, and we must do that at this stage. The moment you press cos inverse, or sine inverse, or tan inverse on your calculator, the moment you press that button, that is the stage when you draw your graph. So I am drawing my cos graph. The other thing to note for these questions is I am drawing my cos graph, and I'm drawing it super big. I'm drawing it all the way up to 540 degrees, in fact. Now, the question only wanted me to give the answers that are between 0 and 180. So I can understand if you're thinking, why have you drawn a cos graph so big? Why are you going all the way up to 540? Well, you'll see that in a minute. So when is the cos graph equal to 0.4? The cos graph is equal to 0.4 here, here, and here. So I know that this is the same as this, which is the same as this. The calculator has told me that this is 66.40. So I know that this is 66.42. And this is 66.42. So my three answers are 66.42. And then this is going to be 360 minus the 66.42. Which will be 293.58. And this is going to be 360 plus 66.42, which gives 426.42. So cos inverse is cos is equal to 0.4 at 66.42, or 293.58, or at 426.42. These are my answers for what 3x equals. It is at this stage now when I am allowed to divide everything by 3. Because I've got all of my answers that I want. I've used the graph, I've got all of the answers I want. So now I'm going to divide everything by 3. So I'll have the 66.42 divided by 3, which gives 22.1 to 1 decimal place. The 493.58, so the 293.58 divided by 3, gives 97.9 to 1 decimal place. And then finally the 426.42 divided by 3 is equal to 142.1 to 1 decimal place. So these are my answers to this equation. You can see now, perhaps, why I drew my graph all the way up to 540. Why I did such a big cos graph. The reason I did such a big cos graph is I knew that I was going to be dividing everything by 3 at the end. So what I did is I looked at my range of values, the 0 to 180. I looked all the way up to 180 and thought, right, I'm going to times that by 3. Because I knew that I was going to be dividing by 3 at the end. So I knew that when I got answers that were 426.42, I knew when I got these huge answers, that was fine, that was good. I wanted those because I knew I was going to divide by 3 at the end. And you can do a quick check to make sure you've got this correct. If I took any of those answers and substitute them back into the original, so check. If I did cos of 3 times 142.1, you should roughly get 0.4. You won't exactly get 0.4 because we rounded, but you should get roughly 0.4. So the key things from this video: do not divide by 3 at the beginning and draw your graphs nice and big. Let's see a couple more examples. So here I want to solve the equation sine x plus 45 equals 0.3, and I want to give my answers, the answers that are between 0 and 360. So sine x plus 45 equals 0.3. So my first job is to take sine inverse of both sides. So sine inverse of 0.3. Let me type that into my calculator. And I get 17.46 to 2 decimal places. Big red exclamation mark. Do not subtract 45. Do not do that at this stage. I know you look at the x plus 45 and you might think, oh, look, that's easy, just subtract 45. But don't do it yet. We must consider the graph first. We need to find the other answers to sine inverse of 0.3. So, sine graph. Ooh. I'm not going to draw my sine graph super big here, because I'm not multiplying by anything in this question. I added 45, so I'll draw my sine graph a little bit bigger than 360, but I'm not going to draw it super big. It's not like the last question where I had 3x, and so I know I'm going to be dividing by 3 at the very end. I'm going to be subtracting 45 from at the end. So I'm going to draw my sine graph a little bit bigger, but I'm not going to draw it much bigger than like I did in the last question. Right, so when is the sine graph equal to 0.3? Here, 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 here. using some symmetry. I know that's the same as that, which is the same as that, which is the same as that. The calculator told me that this was 17.46. So this is going to be 17.46. This is going to be 17.46. And this is going to be 17.46. So to get all of my answers then, this first answer is obviously 17.46. This answer here is going to be 180 minus the 17.46, which gives 162.54. This answer up here is going to be 360 plus 17.46, which gives 377.46. And this answer over here is going to be 540 minus 17.46, which is 522.54. So these are all of the answers for when the sine graph is equal to 0.3. So these could, I'm not necessarily saying they are all, but these could all be the answers to my equation. These are all the answers that x plus 45 could equal. Now, this is the stage. I've drawn my graph. I've got all of the answers. Now I'm allowed to subtract 45 from each of my answers. So 17.46 minus 45 is minus 27.54. 162.54 minus 45 is 117.54. 377.46 minus 45 is equal to 332.46. And finally, 522.54 minus 45 is equal to 477.54. So these are all valid solutions to this equation. You can substitute any of them in to check. But given that we want to give our answer between 0 and 360, I know that I'm not going to give this first answer because it's negative, and I'm not going to give the last answer because it's too big. But these answers here are good. I like both of them. They are between 0 and 360. So those are the solutions that I'm going to give to this problem. So again, key thing, do not subtract the 45. Draw the graph first. Draw the graph bigger than what you need. I drew it an extra 180 degrees. I probably didn't need to go that far, but draw the graph bigger than you need so that you're able to get all of the answers once you adjust at the very end. Last example. We want to solve the equation tan 2x minus 10 is equal to minus 0.4. So first step, do tan inverse of the minus 0.4. So tan inverse of minus 0.4 gives minus 21.8 degrees. Draw the graph. The moment you press tan inverse, sine inverse, cos inverse, whatever it is, the moment you press that inverse button on your calculator, draw the graph. And draw the graph bigger than what you think you need. So I'm drawing my tan graph here. And I'm going to start at minus 90, and I'm going to go all the way up to, let's go all the way up to at least 360. I might go a little bit bigger if I've got space. Yeah, let's go, oops, it's a bit messy. Let's go up to 540. Asymptotes go in. Whenever we draw the tan graph, we draw the asymptotes first. And my tan graph looks like this. Right, when is the tan graph equal to minus 0.4? Minus 0.4 is roughly down there. So it's equal to minus 0.4 here, 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 and here. Using the symmetry. So my calculator told me that this was minus 21.8. So this is going to be minus 21.8. This is going to be minus 21.8. This is going to be minus 21.8. So I had one answer as the minus 21.8. This answer here is going to be 180 minus the 21.8, which is going to be 158.119, or just 0.2 to one decimal place. This answer here is going to be 360 minus 21.8, which is 338.2. And this answer over here is going to be 540 minus 21.8, which gives 518.2. So these are the different answers to when the tan graph is equal to minus 0.4. So I've used the tan graph now. I am now going to add 10 to all of these answers. So I will add 10 to all of those. And then I'm going to divide everything by 2. So 168.2 divided by 2 is 84.1. 348.2 divided by 2 is 174.1. And the 528.2 divided by 2 is 264.1. I wanted to give answers between 0 and 180. So I'm not going to include the minus 5.9 or the 264.1, but I am going to include the 84.1 and the 174.1. Those are both the answers that I'm going to give to this question. So on this topic, be careful when you have this on the inside. When you have that on the inside, do not divide by 2 or add 10 or anything like that until you have drawn the graph. You must draw the graph the moment you press tan inverse, sine inverse, cos inverse on your calculator. That is the key thing from this video. The moment you press tan inverse equals on your calculator, you draw the graph. And you draw the graph bigger than you need. In this case here, the question wanted me to give my answers between 0 and 180. I looked here and saw that I was going to times by 2, or rather divide by 2 at the very end. So I drew my graph twice as big as that, and then a bit bigger as well. So I actually went all the way up to 540, which is not strictly necessary, but much better to find more solutions than not enough solutions. Because if you don't give all of the correct solutions, you will lose marks. So there we go.